Didn't your dad
She
do that?
doesn't
He'd
pick
bring
it up.
like cases of Coca-Cola because he refused to drink Pepsi, right?
Yeah, we've been
Well,
into a few restaurants where if they didn't serve Coca-Cola, you'd be like, all right, pack up. Here we go.
see, I'm the opposite. I'll take the 8 ball, but I'll drink Pepsi and I'll snort Coke.
uh, you brought it up, so I'm going to touch on it. While you were playing, obviously, it's no secret that stuff is readily available. The question I kind of have is it managed well for the most part for players?
So, obviously, alcohol was, yeah, that's what hockey is community. So I didn't get into that till after my career, really hard. Obviously today, everything's readable for us whenever we want it, but that wasn't, obviously nowadays things are a little bit different now with what's out there and what's in there with fentanyl and all, kind of that stuff. It's a different animal, but, I didn't I didn't venture down those paths, till after my career, but anything's out there when you want it. It's just one phone call away from the right person.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the legendary stories of Theo Fleury and whatnot. I mean, I wonder sometimes that some guys get a little extra leash, when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Well, obviously Flair, there is open about his past traumas, right? And that's kind of where, for me, with being sobriety, I drug abuse and alcohol abuse is, childhood trauma to me. So why, right? If you can go and have one or two, it's 100 or 200 for me, right? Because I love that feeling. That feeling is for me was getting away from feeling myself.
Have you found a community since you've retired of realizing like, hey, I wasn't alone in all this, and have you been able to find that outside of outside of the game and in retirement?
Yeah, and that's kind of why I'm open with it when we talk about this. Is when I talk about it, when I help, that's why I started the foundation. I never want a person to feel the way I do. I pretty much had everything happen to me, so I take calls all day, talk to people all day. That's my therapy, right? Those are my AA meetings all day long. My wife's been sober 17 years. We don't drink. So yeah, she, her and I live the kind of the sober life right now. Normally she's already in bed. She's like, all right, come crawling. We're old now. I got grandkids. I'm staring 50 down the barrel. But I always say this: you attract what you give off. Now, remember in high school, I only date bad boys because that's what you give off. So when you start living a lifestyle and you attract the right people, you attract the people that you want to attract, is what would you give off.
Crazy you mentioned that. Dave and I have had lots of talks about that, but just on the topic of like even females, like if you want a specific type of gal, let's say like you want like a traditional gal, okay, well, reverse engineer, what does a traditional gal want? That's what you got to become, and then you attract that. It's interesting you mentioned that because it's a universal truth outside of dating and in business and all these things as well.
The foundation, what's very different from any of the dyslexia foundations out there is I care about self-esteem. That is the number one first, and if I can get you to love yourself, your life is going to be amazing. Look in the mirror and say, I love you, know it, feel it, and believe it. Because all dyslexics hate themselves. Why am I that kid? Why can't I just do this? I'm in grade 6. Why can't I read this? I just want the cute dog to like me and hold my hand, right? I can't do this. So, back to what you're talking about, the more you love yourself and you're okay with who you are, that's when your life changes.
Well, is that not the hardest respect to earn? Is the respect of yourself, and then you can work on the outside world from there.
At the end of the day, there's nobody else that spends more time with yourself than yourself.
We're going to put a lot of links down in the podcast description, obviously, and I know we got lots more questions for you, but I think this is a good opportunity. Talk about the foundation, talk about how people can get involved if they want to reach out, and to really take this opportunity to break it all down.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The Sopel Foundation, obviously, sopelfoundation.org is a website. Go back to what is dyslexia, so dyslexia is 1 in 5 and hereditary. Second most common thing in the world next to cancer. Everybody obviously knows autism. That's 1 in 45 and not hereditary. So just take a look at the amount of people. 50% of people in the prison in the world are dyslexic.
Wow. 50.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
89% of suicide notes left are dyslexic.
Wow.
75% of us are addicted to drugs and alcohol. So, and then the other flip side, 40% of self-made millionaires are dyslexic. 50% of people that work at NASA are dyslexic. So it can be a gift if you understand it. You know, one, you get diagnosed. Two, understanding what that means. And three, finding your journey, right? I didn't find out till I was 32. And how I found out is I got my daughter tested. Got her tested, did the results, came back, and, you know, went through all the tests and like, oh, that's me. So if my daughter didn't have it, if it can skip a generation, it's about 5% of people, it skips a generation. I would still think here today that I'm just stupid.
Without naming names, can you go back into your Rolodex and recognize it in other guys that you played with?
I can walk by somebody now and tell you they're struggling. You know, because, you know, we talk about energy, and I've struggled my whole life. Self-esteem. Suicide is something that daily, it's not if, it's when I'm going to commit suicide. You know, that's what I look at every day. I've sat in front of the train for hours and days. When am I going to jump? Right? So I live on that side. I've been on that side, and I know when somebody's on that side. And that's why there's certain things like the, you know, text 988 or whatever, the suicide hotline is the biggest scam, because that's not what we do. You know, in the hockey world, in the school world, I get called in for people on suicide, and I didn't see there's any signs. I can show you 50 signs, you just didn't know what to look for. And that's why I'm very open about, you know, the foundation. So we help all that, you know, dyslexics. Self-esteem is the number one thing. I need you to love yourself. I don't care about reading or writing. No matter if you're a fireman or a hockey player or a baseball player or a golfer or, you know, a CEO, if you're that dark, guess what? It doesn't matter what we're not learning. I need you to be okay with whatever that, you know, radios, you know, you're that dark, you're not learning. You may be doing your job, but you're not enjoying it, and you're not getting better because you're not learning. And once I can get you out of that and understand what this means is, in the foundation, it's like 99.9% of the foundation for dyslexia in the world are ran by non-dyslexics. I'm one of the very few foundations in the world ran by a dyslexic for a dyslexic.
Dave, if you enjoyed what you just saw, we do new clips every single day, twice a day on the Clips channel. You see clips right here. And beside Dave's crotch, we have a full-length show every single Sunday, right by my hand.
Click right here.